The topic tonight, I wanted to present you guys with a strategy that you can start doing from here in Canada. You could probably do it in Canada, but this is all from a perspective of doing it in the US. So some of the things I might say might not apply to Canada. This is a strategy that I just started implementing into my business this past year, and it's been awesome since we started doing it. Okay, so it's called wholetailing. All right, just need a drink here. So a little bit about me just to get started. My name's Cal Ewing. Living here in Calgary. And I started investing in US real estate in 2009, right after the market crashed. I was going to university at the time. I just finished taking a bunch of Rich Dad, Poor Dad real estate training, spent a whole ton of money on that, which I sort of regret. And I was taking geology at U of C, and at the same time as I was taking geology, I was learning how to quit geology because I've wanted to be a real estate investor for the longest time, and that's after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. To me, that was a no-brainer. That was the only thing I felt that was worth spending my time on in order to be financially free, build wealth, and have the lifestyle that I wanted. So I'm crazy about real estate. I love it. It's my passion. I no longer work as a geologist. I just do real estate full time. You may have heard earlier, my partner, Clint Rogers, he's on the line too. He's down in Houston. So together we are trying to build an empire, and we're going to take over Texas. That's our plan. So I'm the father of two wonderful girls, and one of my whys is I want to be able to teach them how to invest so that they can spend their adulthood not stuck in the rat race like most of us are, but pursuing passions that they love, no matter how little or how much it pays them. So that's my goal with them. And as I said, I buy houses in Houston. So to date, I think I've completed 30-some real estate transactions in the US, and none in Canada except my own house. So I'm not a huge investor, I'd say, but I have big goals of growing that. I've been full-time since 2016, and I started buying at the tax foreclosure auctions, and have since moved to more of a traditional way of buying houses, flipping, wholetailing, and something called owner financing, which I'd like to do a webinar on in the future. All right. Okay, so I guess I'm just going to stop here. If anyone has any questions, let me just check this out. Okay, Kim said good. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. If you guys have any questions, I'm just going to check here and there just to make sure that I am taking care of you guys. All right. Okay, what the heck is wholetailing? It's a made-up word. I had no idea what it was. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about wholesaling. This is a little different. And I learned about wholetailing from someone named Michael Quarles. He is a major real estate investor down in the States. And he's down in California. He owns a company called yellowletters.com. You've probably seen it. And he has his own podcast and things like that, and he mentors people. So none of this is really my material. I'm sharing my experiences, but I learned the strategy from him. And if you'd like to get more training on this, I really recommend looking up Michael Quarles. And his, I think his training website is Buy, Sell, Fix, Flip. Okay, so what Michael talks about is a lot of people are into the passive income thing, right? Where you want to get cash flow, having your properties make you money while you're on vacation and things like that. What Michael taught me is, why do passive income when you can earn massive income, and make it passive by creating systems. So what wholetailing is a way to earn massive income. And then it's something that we can do all over the United States remotely. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're making big profits. We're not making $200 a month and hoping for appreciation. We're making big profits on every deal. Okay, so I just want to compare, just to get the terminology clear so you guys can understand what the different strategies are and the pluses and minuses of a bunch of them. So I'm sure you've all heard of wholesaling to some degree. There's not a lot of wholesaling going on in Canada, I find. Some people try, but I don't know too many people that are very successful at it. It's a lot easier to do in the United States. Actually, that's kind of our bread and butter in our business. So what wholesaling is you're finding a property, you're buying it at a really good discount, and you're getting the property under contract. Okay, so your company or your entity is on contract as the buyer, and typically you're writing and/or assigns on the buyer line, and then you're taking that contract and you're marketing it to a list of buyers, a list of investors that you've built. So you've got a buyer's list of investors, and they might be landlords or flippers, and you're marketing the property and the contract to your buyers. And then what happens is there's a couple ways to do it, but a lot of people, they assign the contract to the investor buyer. Okay, so they're basically taking that contract that you have with the seller, they're taking your place as the buyer, and you're marking up their price. Excuse me. So if I have it under contract for $50,000, I might mark it up to my investor buyer for $55,000, and they go ahead and buy the property, and I assign the contract to them. Okay, so I hope that made sense. And that typically takes about 1 month to get paid. Sometimes you can do it as low as about 2 weeks. Sometimes, obviously, they take longer. And the profits on this kind of a transaction are typically on the lower end. So we're talking 3,000, 5,000. The best one we've ever done is 30,000. But I have met people that have done 50, 100, over 100,000 in wholesale in an assignment fee. But that's typically really high-end properties, and that's not really where we like to play. So it's usually 3 to 10 to 15,000 in there. So the problem with that is we're leaving a lot on the table, right? We're taking a small cut, but we're passing all the profits on to our investors, right? And they're reaping the benefits. So that's cool. It's a great source of cash flow into the business. We do wholesales that keep our business going. We get paid constantly on an ongoing basis without having to wait around for a fix and flip to be done or a rental income, that kind of thing. But we're leaving a lot on the table, right? Okay, so here's an example. This is one we did just down in Houston, just after Hurricane Harvey. It was flooded, and we picked it up for $180,000, and we turned around and sold it to one of our fix and flip buyers for $185,000, and we made $5,000 on the deal. Okay, and that took under a month. Okay. So then, obviously, you guys all know what fixing and flipping or remodeling is, but we're finding a similar property at a deep discount, and we're buying it ourselves, either cash or typically hard money or private money. And then we're going to take it to top of market condition by repairing it, right? So we're going to update it. We're going to maybe add a bedroom or a bathroom, paint, carpet, who knows, foundation, roof, whatever. It can be a complete gut job, right? So it can cost a lot of money. And the goal is to get it to top of market condition. And typically we're going to sell it on the MLS at retail price to someone that wants to move in, pay full value, and live in it. Okay, so that's great. We all know that. There's so many shows that talk about fixing and flipping, right? They're all mostly BS, but you can make anywhere between 20 and 150,000 on a flip. I know guys here in Canada, the margins actually seem bigger than in the States, but you know, you can make over 150 on flips in the States too. And depending on how well oiled your team is and your systems are, you can take between 3 months to 8 months, maybe even a year if you aren't that good at it. But obviously it's a longer term play, and you got to wait around until you get your profits out of it, right? So that one is high reward, obviously, because you're getting most of the money out of it, but it is higher risk, and especially if you're doing it from afar, from here in Canada or something like that, or from out of state. I've learned the hard way that it can be very risky and hard to control these projects from afar. Not to say that they can be done, but there are more risk. All right. So here's an example again of one we just listed yesterday. So this is another flood house after Hurricane Harvey, excuse me, in Houston. So here's a before and after. And this one we picked up for $360,000, and we put about $79,000 in repairs in, and we're expecting to sell it somewhere between $600,000 and $620,000 for 55 to 65K profit. So Obviously, the profits are there, but there is a lot of risk. Okay, so now wholetailing is the third strategy, and this is the topic of our webinar tonight, and it's kind of lies in between. So the word wholetailing is a mixture of wholesale and retail, wholetailing. Okay, so what the goal is with wholetailing is you're finding a property, you're wanting to pick it up below as is value, so you're wanting to buy it at 60 to 70 cents on the dollar, and you're making none or minimal repairs to the property. So you might be cleaning it up, doing a little landscaping, mowing the grass, maybe painting it, but you're not remodeling, okay? So you're basically just getting it at a discount and you're selling it at as-is value, okay? And we are relying on the MLS. So we're not building a buyer's list here. We're relying on the power and the reach of the MLS, the multiple listing service, and all the realtors and all the buyers that are in your market. We're relying on them to be our buyer. Okay, and the cool thing about that is we are opening ourselves up to investors still, but also retail buyers, right? So it's just a lot more opportunity, and there's more people willing to pay higher prices, right? A lot of investors are obviously savvy, and so they're not willing to pay as much, whereas a retail buyer is, even if it needs work. Okay, so we're making 20,000 to 60,000 on these deals. So it can be as much as a fix and flip, but it's not necessarily, but it's definitely more than a wholesale deal. And we do these in 1 to 3 months, okay? So it's lower risk because you're not doing the repairs. That's the hardest part is, budgeting for all the repairs, and there's always unexpected things that happen. You're scheduling, all that stuff, right? So we're taking that out of the equation. And here's a deal we just did this year. This one is a duplex, and it needed a lot of work. It was vacant, and we ended up buying it for $50,000, and we sold it for $85,000 in under a month, and we made $31,600 on it. Okay, so we didn't do anything at all to this property. We just turned around and sold it. Okay, so this is basically a mixture. We're balancing the risk, we're balancing the work, and taking as much as we can without having to put ourselves in a really high-risk situation when it comes to rehabbing. And this is ideal for someone like us in Canada because you don't need a big team, and you can still make some really crazy profits, which is awesome. All right, so I am gonna just check here. You guys are all good? Hey, AJ, how's it going, man? Good to see you on. All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna get back in here again. Okay, so wholetail strategy. So I felt like the best way to do this is to actually go through one of our deals, and you can see real numbers in play here. So what we're gonna do, this is actually in the background, the house we just finished. You're looking to buy the house at 60 to 70% of as-is value. Okay, so it definitely, not every deal fits this mold, and you've got to be pretty good at negotiating, but you can absolutely find these kind of deals. And then we're gonna list it on the MLS at as-is value. And we're gonna back everything up by an appraisal, an inspection, and a BPO. And a BPO is a broker price opinion. Okay, so when we get a house under contract, obviously we're running our own numbers and making our offer. But before we close on the deal, we're gonna make sure that we have an appraisal, an inspection, and a broker price opinion. And the reason we do that is we wanna make sure that we are going to be able to know where we're selling it at, right? We need to know what that as-is value is. And so we get that done first, and then if something comes back, the appraisal comes back lower than we thought, or the inspection comes back where the repairs are more, obviously we can renegotiate with the seller or get out of the deal, okay? So it's very important that we do that. When we wholesale and we're just selling to an investor, we don't do this. But in this strategy, we absolutely must. And what we do, now this is the cool part, is we can do these deals no money down, okay? And our first deal that we ever did in this strategy was actually done this way, no money down deal. So what we can do is double close. And I don't know if this works in every state. I think you need to ask an attorney if you're going into different states, but in Texas, this works. Okay, so what we're doing is we're taking our buyer's money and we're using their money to close our purchase. So it's simultaneous or instantaneous closing, and we don't need to bring any money to the table as long as you can close within, like a half an hour of each other. Okay, and you need the right title company to do it. Some title companies might turn you away, but it's absolutely doable, and we did it, and that's how you make the major dollars, is doing it as a double close. Okay, so I'll talk more about that. Obviously, you can't always coordinate a buyer and a seller so that you can close on the same day. Sometimes you're waiting, especially if it's not an investor buyer. If you're waiting for a retail buyer to sell their other property or get bank financing lined up, it's not always doable. But we have another backup plan that we use, and we just close with a hard money lender, and then we either top it up with our own cash, or we have private lenders that we bring on to help us with the extra proceeds that we need to close the deal. And then we just wait until our buyer can close. So that's typically within a month to 3 months, we hold the property while we're waiting to get it sold again. Okay. And when I say 90 days or less to get these deals done, there is something called a seasoning period that a lot of banks and lenders have. And this is how this works. So if we buy a house for 100,000, say, and we turn around and a week later we're going to sell it for 160,000. The bank, if our buyer is a retail buyer and they're using a bank and a bank mortgage to buy the house, their bank is looking at the last transaction or the last sale of that house. And if they see that we paid 100, in their mind, then the house is worth 100. No matter what the comps say, in their mind, it's worth 100, and we're trying to sell it for 160. So if there's no way to justify that sudden increase in value, they may not be able to lend 80% of their new borrower's purchase price. Okay, but if you wait 90 days for this seasoning period to end, then you have no problems. Okay, so when we analyze these deals, we're always factoring in 90 days of holding costs, and we're factoring in that we're going to have to use a hard money lender in order to close the deal. And as I said, this is easy to implement from Canada. All right, so here's an example. This is 3206 Lone Trail Drive in Texas City, Texas. And here's some photos of the house. It's a rather new house, really nice. It did not look like this when we bought it, that's for sure. This is after we had the cleaners in, we hauled all the junk out. But it was a nice 4-bed, 2.5 bath house built in 2006. And it was actually the show home in a brand new community that is still being built right now. So here's the overhead view of the area. So it's located right here. And all of this here now is brand new homes. They're just being sold right now in 2018 and in 2017. And just for some context here, Texas City is down by Galveston. So here's the Gulf of Mexico, here's Galveston Island, and Texas City, and this is where this house is. So it's a really blue collar area. There's a lot of refineries and that kind of work, blue collar work. So it's really easy to rent these properties out. And a lot of these cities here are very old. So having a brand new subdivision, there actually isn't a lot of new houses. So we really like this area. Okay, so how did we get this deal? This is our marketing piece right here. So what we did is we send out a series of direct mail. We do 5 to 6 different mail pieces every month, or one each month, obviously. And this one here is what they called on, and it's what we call a zip letter. So some of you guys have probably seen it where you get this letter in the mail and you have to tear off the top, and it's usually pretty important. It's like from your bank or from the government or something like that, CRA, right? So a lot of people open those. And inside we have an actual offer and earnest money check. It's not a real check, but it looks real. Okay, so this is what the sellers called on. And we actually marketed to a bankruptcy and notice of sale, which is like a pre-foreclosure list. Okay, so then the next step is determining the value. Okay, so we have a realtor on our team, and you absolutely, I think, need a realtor on your team in the market that you're buying in. I'm sure that's probably one of the first things you thought of too. But we get comps from our realtor. And you can see here the days on market on these homes are under a month. So there's a lot of, they're really desirable because they're so new. And these ones here, these are the newer homes. They had a higher day on market, but I think it's because they're marketing them before they were finished building them. So this house, the comps sold for basically 180 to 190. Our tax assessment was 172, and the Zestimate on Zillow is 195. Okay, so we were figuring that the value, at least the as-is value, was going to be somewhere between 165 to 185. And let's go into the next screen. The new builds were selling for 217 to 229. So we figured our fixed up value, if we were going to take it and remodel or rehab it, was going to be about 190 to 200. And our as-is value was about 165 to 175. All right. So there's two ways when you're doing this to figure out what your as-is value is. Okay, so you can start with the property's ARV, which is the after repair value. And so all you do there is look for comps that have been recently remodeled and use those as comps, so recently renovated and updated. And take that number and minus the repairs to get the property to that condition. And then take the number of months it's going to take to make those repairs, and I multiply that by 10,000. Okay, and that's just basically getting paid for our time, right? So if it takes 2 months, then we're going to add 20,000 onto there. If it's 3 months, we're going to add 30,000. Okay, so in this case, we figured our after repair value is 190. Our repairs were 15.5, and we figured we could do the repairs in 1 month, so 10,000. Gave us 169.5 is our as-is value for this house. Now, the other way you can do it is just take comps. So houses that are in similar shape and condition to your subject property that also need repairs, you can use those as comps to figure out what the as-is value. And we like to use homes that have sold in the last 365 days to, I guess 180 is better, half a year is better, obviously. Within half a mile to a quarter mile, somewhere in that range, and then like type for beds and baths. So if it's a 3-bedroom house, we want to have comps that are 3 bedrooms as much as possible, etc. Okay, and obviously similar size, plus or minus 200 square feet, and then within 5 to 10 years in age. So using that method, we got 165,000. All right. So now that we know the as-is value and the after repair value, we need to figure out, well, what the heck are we going to offer? How's this? What do we need to offer? What's our max offer so that this all makes sense for us and we can make some money? So first thing we do, and this is directly from Mr. Quarles, the mentor that I told you about, take your as-is value, and you need to figure out what is your cost of your purchase and your sale, right? Because we're going to buy and then turn around and sell immediately. So it's going to be different for everyone. We have negotiated with our real estate agents when we sell. We were down a little bit on our percentage. They knocked off 1.5% of what they normally charge for commission. So our number is 8.25% of the as-is value. So that's going to be our cost to buy it, the closing costs, and then our cost to turn around and sell it. And that's our sale, closing costs, and commissions for the real estate agent. And here, I mean, you can set your own profit goals, but for us, if the house is worth between 150 and 200K, we want to make about 35,000 on it. If it's below 150, we're okay with about 25 to 35. If it's above 200, we want to make more closer to 45,000 on the property in profits. Okay, so we add those two together. And then we also need to factor in our cost to get the deal, right? So we are marketing pretty heavily to get these deals. As I told you, we send a lot of direct mail. We do a bunch of other things too to get deals. So we want to recoup some of that cost that we incurred to get the property. So what we usually do is factor in 10% onto that for marketing to pay back that marketing cost to get the house. So we take that number and multiply by 1.1. Okay. So when you factor in the profit, cost of sale and the marketing, that adds up to about $52,000. So we subtract that from our as-is value, and that is our maximum purchase price that we can pay if we're going to do this strategy. Now, there is a bit of a simpler way if you're just looking at a whole bunch of deals and trying to go fast, and that's typically we just look at 60 to 70% of as-is. And as you can see here, puts us in the similar range, 99 to 115. Okay, so we ended up getting this one for 111, 165. Okay, so I'm just checking in. If any of you guys have any questions or whatever, let me know. All right, cool. There's got to be a better way to do this, and I promise I'll figure this out for later instead of having to stop every time. But. Okay. All right, so the next step. So we got this deal under contract for 111. And after we got it under contract, we found out that they were going to be getting foreclosed on September 4th. And they didn't tell us that in the beginning when we were negotiating. We actually asked them straight out, and they said that they weren't in foreclosure. So we found that out, and we got it under contract August 1st. So we basically had 1 month to get this done, to get it closed and find a buyer if we're going to try and do a double close, right? We then found out that they owed the bank $95,000 in payoff, including the missed payments, and they owed the HOA $5,000. All right, so, and they were getting ready to file suit as well, the HOA. So based on that, the seller was going to walk away with $11,000. They were happy with that. They just needed some money to walk away with, and so everything was good. There's Clinton and I right there. So then we did our next step, which is to get the appraisal and the inspection done and the broker price opinion. And the appraisal actually came back at 185. So it was 20,000 more than I thought. And that was the as-is value. So this deal was just looking better and better all the time. And the inspection report came back, and it was all just minor repairs. There's nothing major there that we didn't see or foresee, which was great. So all signs said move forward on this one. We only had $100 in option money down at that point. We had a 10-day option period so that we didn't lose any earnest money, and we were good to go. So our plan was to have the sellers move out mid-August, which was 2 weeks from closing, and they were going to tidy up the lawn for us, and we were going to get cleaners in as soon as possible and get some pictures done. But then real life happened. So the first day, the lawnmower broke. We were trying to get the lawn done right away for photos, and the seller's lawnmower broke, so we had to get someone in to do that. Then the cleaners couldn't get in the house. The locks, even though we had a lockbox on, they could not get in, and no one was answering their phones. So we were trying to get in touch with the sellers, and neither of them were answering their phones. It was going directly to voicemail for 2 days straight. So we were not happy. I was down in Houston at the time, and we went and knocked on the door, and someone answered. A lady answered that we'd never seen before. She looked all drugged out. She had track marks up her arm. She was absolutely stoned, and she was apparently suddenly living in that house. And she informed us that the sellers, both sellers, were in jail. So we're like, oh shit, how do we buy a house and close in under a month and stop a foreclosure when the people that need to sign all the documents are in jail? And now we've got a stoner person living in the house. So real estate's so fun. Every time you think you got something figured out, you learn a new lesson, right? So that was our challenge with this one. So we ended up having to track down the people in jail, and we actually got a hold of their mother, the grandmother, and we ended up getting her power of attorney so that she can make all the decisions and help us get this deal done before the foreclosure. And we ended up taking all their stuff in a U-Haul van, putting it into storage for them, and it cost about $2,000 to do that, which we actually charged back to the seller at closing. And then the only actual repairs that we put in was we put a new garage door on for $1,000. And a whole bunch of drama later, we got it listed, and we listed it at 175. And turned out pretty good. We got it cleaned up. It looks pretty good. So then we had to close. We didn't have a buyer lined up because we were in a rush to stop the foreclosure. So this deal was not going to be a double close type deal like I was mentioning, which was unfortunate because it would have saved us quite a bit in costs, but it doesn't really matter. So what we did is we used a hard money loan for $99,600 at 10%, 2.5 points. And then we had a private second loan lender that came on, some friends actually from Calgary, and they put on the second loan, and they were earning 12% on the loan we gave them a 3-month minimum. So even if we were able to get it sold in a month, we're going to pay them 3 months to make it worth their while. So we were in really $1,000. We really had no money down in this deal except for the garage door and then what we put into marketing, which is awesome. And we borrowed enough out to cover all of our holding costs for 3 months as well. So we closed it. Closing costs were about $7,000. Monthly holding costs $15,500. And we got a full price offer on the house, and we are closing this one October 10th. So here's the Bigger Pockets flip calculator that I like to use, showing the deal here. So on this one, our profits were expected to be about $39,000 with $1,000 in. Okay, so and then it also, this is kind of cool. It shows how much you make if it goes longer or if you're able to get it done in a shorter amount of time. So this deal turned out really awesome despite all the headaches. And if we were to wholesale it, we did get some investors who made cash offers. We could have maybe made $5,000 to $10,000 if we would have just wholesaled this to an investor buyer, a cash buyer. Okay, our buyer is using conventional financing to close this deal. And if we would have fixed and flipped it, really, we could have made a bit more. We're selling it for $175. We maybe could have sold it for $190. But I mean, why? We didn't do anything, and we're going to get paid here in a couple weeks. So this is why I love this strategy so much, is you can just make so much more money without the headache. All right, so here's the other 3 that we've done this year. We're looking to do more, but as I said, not every deal fits this. We can't always negotiate that kind of discount that we need. But these are the 3 others that we did also in that same area. So I told you about this one. This is the one we actually did the double close on, so we didn't use any of our money. And that was a really nice profit of $31,600. And then these other 2 here, we ended up closing again with hard money lenders and private money. And we sold these, we did pretty good on these ones too, $23,900, excuse me, and $21,000. Okay, so you can see that it's quite a bit more than your typical wholesale deal. Okay, so in summary, I believe, because I am doing it from here, it is a really good strategy for Canadians or anyone that's living out of state that has a market that they want to invest in. Obviously, there's no repairs, so you don't have to babysit general contractors and risk having to deal with that headache. I've had general contractors not perform as I'd hoped, and subcontractors steal from me and things like that. So this gets rid of all that. You don't need to have a buyer's list. If you're wholesaling, you have to build a buyer's list, right? And that takes a lot of resources to build and time to build your investor buyer's list. And here you don't need to do that. You can skip all that. You can use the power of the MLS to get buyers. And as I said, you can do it with no or low money. You don't need a lot of money to do these kind of deals. If you can do the double close, obviously you need no money at all. And if you do require to do 2 different closes, then you're going to need hard money and either your own cash, just hop it up, or private lenders. Okay, so there's a little bit of work you need to do there, but it's not too bad. So what's required if you are doing this from afar or even locally is you definitely need a good real estate agent that can handle this double close scenario. So not every brokerage will do this. We actually had to find a different realtor than what we use for our fix and flips. I think they're Keller Williams or something. They won't touch this double close thing. So we found a real estate agent that will, and they had no problem with it. They're able to get it done easy, and their brokerage had no issues with it. So you do have to hunt around, talk to a few real estate agents and see if they're okay with doing this. You need an investor-friendly title company. So in the States, they close with title companies, not necessarily an attorney like they do here. And all you need to do is just ask some investors and just see what title companies they use that are really investor-friendly, and they'll handle this. They'll know how to do it. They'll know what it is, and they can do your double closes for you. Okay, so you don't really need to know a lot on the whole double close or simultaneous close. You just need someone that knows how to do it, and they do it for you. So it's easy. And then you're going to need to find a decent hard money lender. And there are quite a few hard money lenders that will lend to Canadians as long as you have some sort of US entity. And Chris will teach you guys about that at our next meetup. But just keep calling around. There's a lot of hard money lenders. You just have to call them and ask. And I'd say 1 in 3 will lend to Canadians without a problem. And then some kind of gap lender or private lender that can come in and top you up if you don't have the cash to complete the deal. And we can talk a lot about raising private capital in future webinars and things like that. And then a handyman would be good to have, I think, just to do minor things to the property and lawn maintenance and that kind of stuff. But that's it. I mean, you could do that. You could figure out that whole team in a day, right? So it's pretty easy to set up. And as you can see, it's a really good profit. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this. This is the end of my presentation. I'd love to see if you guys had any questions. Chris. Okay, awesome. Yeah, seasoning period. How was I able to buy for 111K and sell for 175K? That's a good question. So we haven't closed this yet, but so far we haven't had any issues, okay? So we're waiting to see if the buyer's lender is going to have a problem. But a couple things that you can do is you can justify a lot of things. So if you go in and you have someone clean all the windows, you can actually justify that you are improving the functionality of all the windows in the home. And that could mean anything. It can mean that you replace them, or it can mean you simply clean them, right? So that's one thing. Doing some basic mowing, adding some flowers, some basic lawn maintenance and things like that, landscaping, can justify an increase in value. Maybe you could patch the roof, something like that. If there's some roof issues, you can do that pretty cheap. We did the garage door. So there's just little things that you can use to justify that increase in price. And if you get good at it and figure it out, you can sell it right away. We had one deal where they did pull that on us, the seasoning thing. And the buyers actually wanted the house so bad that they were willing to put more down because their lender wasn't going to give them that 80% on the purchase price. So they just put more down and closed because they wanted it bad enough. Okay, so hope that answers that question. Anybody else have any questions? Peter, who's negotiating the price with the sellers when you're in Canada? Are you using a realtor? No, I do not use realtors to buy houses. That's typically myself or Clint, my partner Clint, who is down in Houston. Clint just joined my team in January, so before he joined, I was doing all of it, and I just do it over the phone. And most of the time, that's how we do our deals, is just over the phone. All right. But yeah, I don't involve realtors on the acquisition side of anything because they just want to cut, right? So I like to use a realtor when I sell because we're leveraging all of their work that they're doing to get it gone, but we find the deals ourselves. Jeremy, how tough to close deals remotely? What challenges does it present? Closing is actually, it's not that bad. We use, I have a attorney here, just a regular real estate attorney. He does all my notary stuff. And so what we do is we get the title company to send the closing docs a day before we need to close. I take them in and I do get them all notarized, and then we overnight it or FedEx it down to the title company for closing. And I also scan it and send it right away. And typically having the scans the title company, that's good enough for them to fund the deal. Other than that, when you're setting up with the title company the first time, you have to have all your articles of incorporation and your company documents. But once they get that in their system, that's easy. Yeah, it's not that hard, really. There's nothing to the closing. Just as long as you have your entity set up. And as I said before, we can have Chris come in and talk to you guys next month about how to set up the right entities. All right. Can you buy and sell wholesale houses in Canada? If so, is the timeline longer? Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely do it because all you're doing is buying a house, right? I don't know about the double close. Maybe some of you guys would know, actually. You can chime in. There may be rules here about closing with your buyer's money. I'm not sure if that's doable, but you can absolutely buy a house, right? And then just immediately put it on the market, I'm sure. And I don't know if the timelines would be any different. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be seasoning here with the lenders. That problem's going to exist because here in Canada, all the problems are amplified. It seems like, because there's so much regulation, right? So, but yeah, I mean, just buy a house and turn around and put it on the market again, right? It's all about knowing what the value is. So these questions are great. All right. Yeah, that's everything. Anyone else have anything? Scott, do you need to be incorporated in the US to wholetail? Yes, I would say you do. Not necessarily incorporated, but you need the ideal model, and Chris can talk about this when he does his tax presentation, is actually a limited partnership as a Canadian for taxes, but you do need to have some kind of entity. And number one is that's for obviously tax reasons, but number two, liability reasons. So you want to have something to protect yourself, even as a Canadian, some kind of entity that's going to help you in case you get sued, right? We all know how sue-happy Americans are. And then hard money lenders, a lot of them are going to want some sort of company. I don't even know if everyone will, if they'll do it in your personal name, right? So you need some sort of company, and it should be registered in the US. Okay, so yeah, you definitely need that. Yeah, no problem, Kim. Anyone else have any questions? I really appreciate you guys coming on. I would love feedback. Okay, so if this was beneficial and useful, we can do more of these kind of strategy type webinars. I know a lot of people here in Canada that are buying in different ways, tax foreclosures, for example, wholesale, rentals, turnkey, right? So we can have all kinds of different topic discussions on different ways of doing deals if you like that. So just feel free. I want this to be your group, right? I want to be able to provide content that's valuable to you and that's going to help you guys achieve your goals, right? So whether you want to email me or whatever, just let me know what you think, or if you have any suggestions on how we can make this really, really awesome. All right. So other than that, unless you guys have any questions, oh, there's some more here. Sorry. Do hard money lenders require you to have equity in the property? Yeah, it depends. There's a lot of different lenders. One of the things I do actually, and this is something you can do too, is I actually spend some time every month and I just call different hard money lenders. And they're everywhere. Like if you start Googling the area that you're buying in, they're friggin' everywhere. So I just keep a spreadsheet or like a database of lenders and all their different loan terms. And some of them will lend up to 75% of the after repair value. That's usually the highest they'll go. Some of them, they'll cover all of your repair costs, 100% of your repairs, but they'll only lend up to 90% of purchase. So they want you to have 10% skin in the game, 10% equity. And then others are worse than that, especially if you're Canadian. Sometimes they're going to give you a worse deal. Okay, so it just depends on your lender. I'm actually going to bring in the hard money lender that I use to do a webinar here shortly, and he's 10% interest, and I think it's 2 to 2.5% in points. So that's the cheapest interest I found so far. So you guys are going to have access to him if you want to use hard money, and they're really flexible. And I use them on these wholetails. So they have a really great program just because we're not doing any repairs. They have an as-is loan program. So it's pretty awesome. Oh, and on that note, this is why private money is the best thing you guys can do as investors. Is if you have private lenders, it doesn't really matter too much what your hard money lender is charging, right? Or what, how much they're financing. If you've got private money and like say dentists and doctors and stuff like that, that are wanting to get a really good, stable, safe return on their money as a lender, they can come in second lien position and finance whatever you need. So if it's 10% of that purchase price plus your holding costs, bring them on as a second lender, and then you're good. It doesn't really matter, right? So I don't really use much of my own money for too many deals. Most of our money goes into marketing. Peter, how much are you spending monthly for your marketing to get this kind of result? Yeah, that's a really good question. We're still trying to figure all that out, to be honest. We were spending about $6,000 a month in mail, and it's pretty high. We're looking at actually getting that lower by trying out a bunch of different marketing techniques, from Facebook ads to bandit signs to AdWords and SEO, all kinds of different things like that. Just trying to figure out what that sweet spot is so we can get our marketing down. I actually did a presentation at the last webinar on 30 different ways of marketing for houses. So maybe I can do a webinar on that at some point. But yeah, like the more, like there's companies that are literally spending $100,000 a month on marketing, but they're doing, 200 deals a year, right? So there definitely is a cost there, and that's where we choose to put most of our efforts is on finding the deals, and then using other people's money to actually do the deals. All right, Jeremy, great questions, guys. I love this. Have you heard of people outsourcing the negotiation of the purchase if that is not your strong suit? I've heard of it. We can do it for you. But I don't know. I think honestly, yeah, you can outsource anything. If you found like a joint venture partner or someone that can do it. I've never come across like VAs or anything that's their job is to negotiate deals. I wouldn't really trust that. But yeah, I mean, if you can get a partner or even, hire an acquisitions manager or something that's not a partner in your business, but, you pay them part of the profits or something to be that person that's the negotiator. That's something you could do. Typically 10% of profits is pretty normal. And actually, come to think of it, I really want to bring on, there's a gentleman that taught us how to do our negotiations, and he's amazing. And I really want to get him to do a webinar in the future on negotiation. I think that's going to be one of the best ones for you guys. So I'm going to try and set that up. Okay, these are great questions. This is awesome. Okay, anyone else have anything? Great, good. I'm glad you're getting some value out of it. I would love to hear, while you guys are still on, have any of you guys done any, or what is your experience? What kind of deals have you guys done? Is it rentals or wholesaling or flipping, or are you just getting started? I would love to just see where you guys are at right now, and maybe what your goals are too. Like, is this something that you feel that you could put into action, or you would want to put into action? I would love to know that. Anyone? Here's your chance, guys. Tom and you, okay, he flipped a few houses. Awesome. Where was that, Kim? What state or city? Oh, Calgary, awesome. That's great. Yeah, it's so much easier to flip when you're in the same city for sure. Just getting started, Scott. Okay, cool. Jeremy, how are auctions as a good source of properties? You know what? That's how I got my start at the tax foreclosure auctions, and in the big cities, It's tough. It's really tough. It took me 6 months to get my first deal. And then the next month I ended up getting my second deal. But it's really, really, really competitive. And as a Canadian, especially, you got to be very careful how high you bid. And it's just so common to get outbid on those auctions. But you can do it. I do know guys from Calgary. I know one gentleman that is buying all kinds of auction properties in Georgia, but he's sticking to the smaller counties outside of Atlanta where there's less competition. So there's a lot of tax auction people in our group and in our little community. So we're going to definitely be talking more about that. All right. Chris, a whole lot of education, corp and LP setup and starting to work it in earnest. Yeah. I mean, that is the biggest roadblock as a Canadian, right? Is figuring out what the heck to do to get started. So, and that was one of the main goals of this group, is just to have that available to you guys. So I think if you can come on the first Tuesday of October, you'll be able to get a lot of that handled, Chris, if you don't have it already. Hopefully this isn't Chris Burrow, because if that's true, then you already know it. Tom did one in Vegas. Awesome. Was that recent, or was that back when the market crashed? That was my first deal too, actually. I did my first deal in Las Vegas. Anyone else? Do you guys have any ideas of where you'd like to invest if you haven't started? Any cities or states that you're thinking of investing in? Also a private money broker. Chris, you are? Bought in 2009, sold in 2014. Awesome. Oh, that's cool. I bought mine in 2009 too, but I sold mine in 2009. I wish I'd have kept it. I think it would have done way better. That was my first ever deal in the US. Chris is a private money broker. Oh, there you go, guys. That's awesome, Chris. Do you lend on deals in Canada, or do you lend on US deals? I think, Kim, that was smart. We did that in Phoenix. We bought one, and instead of just fixing it and selling it right away, we kept it, and we caught that upswing when the market started going back, and we were so glad that we kept it. We only kept it 2 years, but we got most of the appreciation when the market rebounded, so it was awesome. All US. Cool. There you go, guys. See, we're already networking. Cool. Chris, I'd love to talk to you. Actually, Chris, what we should do, if you want, let me know. We can talk later, but if you want to come and talk about private lending and just how it works, that'd be cool. Chris, they're going to be popular. Everyone wants to be in contact with you now. That's cool. You got the pick of the crop as far as lending goes then. All right. Well, this is cool. I don't want to keep you guys all night, but this has been really good. I've had a lot of fun. I'd love to keep doing this, and I really appreciate the engagement, guys. It is awesome. Chris, if you do want to get in contact with Kim or any of us, definitely send me an email through the meetup.com. And if you'd rather just stay anonymous, that's cool too. But yeah, this has been really great. So I think what we're going to do is 2 weeks after our October live meetup, we're going to do another webinar. So I'll let you guys know. In the meantime, if you have any questions about anything, about wholetailing, about the meetup, any ideas about how we can make it awesome, just feel free to send me an email, okay? My email is ewing.calvin@gmail. I will send out an email for you guys after this, so you have it, okay? All right. Appreciate it, guys. This has been fun. I'm looking forward to doing this some more. Have a great night.